I shouldn't have come back here. I promised myself, clearly, firmly, without any what-ifs, that I would never set foot on this land again, never breathe the air of this city, never see these walls. I promised myself that this time, my escape would be forever. I was 19 then. I packed my things, said no goodbyes, didn't look back. And as the bus pulled out of Glenville, I stared out the window, clenching my jaw, thinking, never again. But here I am. In front of the old house. Holding a suitcase in my hands. And I can't bring myself to touch the doorknob. Everything looks the same. But it doesn't feel the same. This house was a cage. Invisible, but very real. And the biggest trap in it wasn't the locks on the doors or the screams at night. The worst thing is when you are ignored so convincingly that you begin to doubt whether you exist at all. After my mother died, I was left with my father. And soon after that, with her. With Julia. And with her mother, who soon became my stepmother. And my dad, he just disappeared. He didn't leave physically. He was present in the kitchen, behind the wheel, in front of the TV. But inside, he wasn't there. He disappeared from my world the moment he first stroked Julia's hair and called her sweet princess. I was never a princess. Julia, on the other hand, was born for the role. Always smiling, wearing dresses with bows, carrying flowers for her teachers, gesturing dramatically and calling me sister in front of other people. But when the door closed, her eyes grew cold. I was 15, she was 11. And I remember how she once tore up my favorite diary and said, "That's because you don't write anything interesting." I cried then. But quietly. Because I knew that if I told my dad, he wouldn't believe me. He would say, "Don't exaggerate. She's just a child." And then she started doing it systematically. Things disappeared. Strange rumors started circulating at school. One day, my teacher asked me, "Is it true that your mom drinks?" And I knew where that came from. Julia said she heard it by accident. She knew my mom had died of cancer. She just wanted to hurt me. I often sat in the attic at night. I listened to the laughter coming from downstairs. Their laughter. Julia's, my dad's, her mom's. And me. I was like they didn't even exist. And you know what the worst part is? I tried so hard to earn their love. I made breakfast. I studied harder. I didn't ask for anything. But the more I tried, the more invisible I became. When I turned 18, my dad gave Julia a new laptop because she's starting to study graphic design. And me, a postcard. No signature. It wasn't even new. I found it later in a drawer, with an earlier date. Her mother must have changed her mind about giving it to someone else. That's when I realized I had to run away. And I did. To another city, to another life. I built myself up from scratch. Without Julia. Without my father. Without the need for recognition. And I truly believed that I had closed that chapter forever. And then, a phone call. "Your father has had a stroke. He's in the hospital. We're looking for someone who can take care of him." And it all started again. She opened the door. She stood confidently, like the mistress of the house. She was wearing a knitted sweater, her hair tied back in a careless bun. Her face wore her trademark smile. Wide. Precisely measured. And completely empty. "There you are," she said quietly. "I thought you weren't coming." I nodded silently. My lips were pressed together, my hands were cold. There was a lump in my throat, like before an operation without anesthesia. Everything smelled of the past, dust, old floors, that strange soap her mother used to buy. I crossed the threshold. I took a deep breath. Something stopped me, like a barrier. I felt it immediately, this was not my home. This was her territory. "Where's Dad?" I finally asked. "In the living room. He's sleeping. He's very tired after the procedure." The doctor said it's normal. She spoke in an even tone, without emotion. As if she were talking about a neighbor, not the person who raised me. We walked on. I automatically scanned every corner, what had changed, what was missing, what was left. Everything was too clean. Too perfect. Flowers on the table, a scented candle by the TV, a blanket neatly folded. But something about it all felt artificial. Like a facade. A backdrop to someone else's life. Have you been here long? I asked cautiously. Since they took him to the hospital. I'm the only one who could. She sighed dramatically. It's been hard. But someone had to be the adult. I felt a twinge again. Her words were always like that, formally correct, but with a poisonous core. They hurt, but there was nothing to grab onto. I'll get something to drink, I said, heading for the kitchen. Oh, I just cleaned everything up, she called after me. If you need anything, just let me know. I'll bring it to you. The kitchen had changed too. Nothing remained of my mother's atmosphere. Even her old recipes, which used to hang on the refrigerator, were gone. Instead, there were lists of medications, schedules, and organizers. Everything was printed and organized like in a medical center. Definitely not at home. I stopped at the table. There was an open blister pack of pills on it. The medicine was supposed to be kept in the refrigerator. I knew that because I used to work in social services and knew the protocols by heart. Why are the pills here? I called over my shoulder. What? Julia appeared in the doorway. Oh. I just gave him his dose. I must have forgotten to put it away. Sorry. She came over and carefully took the blister pack. But I noticed how her gaze slid over me cautiously, not in confusion. As if she was assessing how much I had seen. And whether I would keep quiet. I didn't say anything. But inside, I took note. Of this reaction. Of this little detail. We drank our tea in silence. Me, silently. Her, with constant interjections, how difficult it was with her father, how she keeps everything to herself, how no one helped her. Her never sounded like an accusation. And even though I had only just arrived, I already felt that I would be made to feel guilty here. With no chance of justification. She looked at me with the same smile she had when we were children. And I remembered how she once complained that I was making fun of her in front of her friends because I wouldn't let her wear my clothes. How my dad yelled at me then. And she stood behind him, smiling. Just like now. She's still the same. And here I am. In the middle of this theater. Alone. I woke up early. For the first time in a long time, it wasn't because of the alarm clock, but simply because my brain couldn't relax. Everything new was old, but unfamiliar. The bed was hard, and the air in the room was humid. The window was covered with condensation. I got up, put on a sweater, and went to the kitchen. Julia was already there. She was sitting at the table with her laptop, typing something quickly, without pausing. Next to her was a schedule, columns, reminders, printouts. Oh, good morning, she said without looking up. I already made the oatmeal. Dad ate half of it. I nodded silently and opened the cupboard, looking for coffee. The doctor said to limit caffeine in the house, she added suddenly. He has high blood pressure. If you want, there's chicory. Okay. I didn't argue. I just sat down. The kitchen was sterile and clean. Everything was arranged in rows. It was her zone. I felt the desire to move anything disappear. What's the plan for today? I asked as we ate breakfast. The nurse will come at 11 o'clock to check his blood pressure and work on his arm. Then at 2 p.m. physical therapy at home. I'll stay. She picked up a spoon without looking at me. But if you want to do something yourself, let me know. I can pass you the task. No, I just want to be here. Okay, she said briefly. Closer to lunchtime, we were both in my dad's room. He was sitting half reclined, propped up with pillows. His face was a little lighter than yesterday. When I came in, he tried to smile. "Hi, Dad," I said, sitting down carefully beside him. "How are you feeling?" "Tired," he whispered. "But better." His voice was weak but recognizable. It was the same tone he used to read books to me at night. It hit me harder than I expected. I reached out my hand to him. He squeezed it, weakly, but sincerely. Julia stood to the side, holding a notebook. "His blood pressure is 142/86 today. Not bad. The nurse said that's stable for his condition." She wrote something down with a pen. "I'll give him a gentle massage on his left arm, then give him his 12 o'clock pills." I nodded. I watched. I didn't interfere. Then she left the room. I stayed with Dad. He was silent. So was I. After a few minutes, he whispered, "Are you staying for a long time?" "As long as you need me to." He didn't answer. He just closed his eyes. After lunch, I decided to unpack my things a little. I opened my suitcase and couldn't find my phone charger. I was sure I had put it in the outside pocket. I searched everywhere. It wasn't there. I searched the room, nothing. I went to the kitchen. "Have you seen my charger?" No. I didn't go through your things." "I didn't say you did. I just thought maybe you moved it somewhere." She shrugged. "Look in the living room. Maybe Dad moved something. He likes to touch things when he's bored." I didn't answer. I went back to the living room, looked under the pillows, near the sofa, in the drawer under the TV. And I found it. My charger. In a cupboard where I definitely hadn't put anything. I took it silently. No irritation, no panic. I just made a note of it for myself. Strange. That evening, we all had dinner together. Dad ate heartily. Julia served stewed vegetables, bread from the toaster, and meat that she had cooked for a long time in the oven. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. "I added turmeric and a little ginger," she said, pouring it onto the plates. "It's anti-inflammatory. The doctor recommended it." "It tastes good," Dad said quietly. "Thank you. Maybe you'll learn how to cook too someday." She looked at me. "What?" "Nothing," she shrugged. "Just kidding." But I didn't find it funny. Because it wasn't a joke. It was a signal. And I understood it. The next day, I woke up at 8:15 a.m., which was late for this house. When I walked into the kitchen, Julia was already sitting with her phone, drinking coffee and pretending not to hear me come in. "I thought you'd wake me up," I said cautiously. "You looked like you really needed your sleep." She didn't look up. "I didn't want to disturb you." "How's Dad?" "Everything's under control. I gave him his medicine and fed him." She said it calmly, but with a hint of, "I've got this, you don't." It was the first morning I felt like I'd been pushed aside. No questions asked, no consent given. "I want to know the schedule for his treatments. Can I have access to his medical records?" "I'm already keeping a journal. All the main points are there." She nodded toward the notebook on the kitchen table. "If anything is unclear, I can explain." There was no hostility in her voice. But there was a clear boundary: "You are here temporarily." "I am not." I looked through the entries. Dates, times, doses. Everything looked neat. Maybe too neat. And that's why I called the clinic. Just to make sure that the last note about the medication change was really in line with the recommendations. "We haven't received any request to change the medication," said the voice on the other end of the line. "Everything is the same as it was 2 weeks ago." "Are you sure?" "We keep records of everything. I can send you a statement if you need it." I hung up and sat there for a minute. My heart was pounding. Julia hadn't said anything about the new medication. She just gave it to me. And Dad didn't ask any questions. He trusts her. I went into her room while she was on the phone. Her voice was low, but I could hear. No, she hasn't noticed anything. She's holding on for now. But it won't last. I can see it. She's not the type to withstand pressure. Our eyes met. She hung up the phone. Who was that? Work. I have other things to take care of sometimes. Was that about me? You wish. Just then, Dad appeared in the doorway. He was in his pajamas, nervous, his face tense. Are you two fighting again? No, Dad, she said, beating me to it. Martha's just a little tired. She needs time to adjust. His gaze slid over me. And for the first time, I saw something new in it. Distrust. Barely noticeable, but real. And then I realized, she's not waiting for me to make a mistake. She's already making one for me. He sat by the window in an old rocking chair that had once stood in the garage. Julia had brought it in that morning and placed a blanket on the armrests. Everything was just like in an advertisement for ideal care. How are you? I asked, sitting down opposite him. Fine. My head is less noisy today. And my hands are obeying me a little better. His voice was hoarse but calm. I just wanted to sit there, give myself a moment without fighting. But he spoke first. Julia told me that you're out of work. I froze. Yes, I put the project on hold. Temporarily. So I could come here. And, financially? Are you managing? I nodded slowly, although the pressure was already building inside me. For now, yes. I have some savings. And a few remote jobs that don't require full-time commitment. He sighed and turned away to the window. He was silent. Dad. I leaned forward cautiously. This is important. Where did you get these ideas? I just want to make sure you're not here because of the paperwork. What paperwork? The house. The care. The inheritance. The words hit me like ice in a glass. I slowly leaned back. I was processing. Do you really think I came here for the inheritance? I don't know. I'm not accusing you. I'm just asking. Did someone put you up to this? No. He said it too quickly. I stood up. My hands were shaking, but I held them steady. I came because you're my father. Nothing else matters to me. He didn't say anything. When I left the room, Julia was standing by the door. She was holding fresh prescriptions from the pharmacy and pretending she hadn't been eavesdropping. Everything okay? She asked. Fine, I said and walked past her. Later that evening, I went into the living room to get my sweater and heard her talking to someone on the phone in the kitchen. Yes, she's offended. But that's normal. She's always been sensitive about money. She just doesn't want to be seen as interested. Although, well, who would quit their job just like that? It hit me in the stomach. With anger. With humiliation. She's not just changing the situation, she's painting a picture. And she's painting me as someone I've never been. And what's worse, he believes her. The morning began as usual. Julia was preparing breakfast, and I was assisting my father in getting to the table. We were more silent than talkative. After several days under the same roof, this had become the norm. I made an appointment for Dad to see a notary, Julia said between the kettle and the refrigerator. On Friday. At 10. What kind of appointment? I asked. About drawing up a power of attorney. Just in case something happens. So we don't have to run around with papers when it's too late. Didn't you think to tell me? I am. Right now. I looked at Dad. He didn't argue. He just looked a little uncomfortable. Do you support this? I asked him. It's just a formality. He replied, not very confidently. No one is going to remove you. It's just convenient when one person handles things. And I knew who that one person was. Okay, I said evenly. I'll be at the meeting too. Julia looked at me with a smile. She didn't object. That evening, after my dad fell asleep, I took my old smartphone out of my bag, updated it, and downloaded a voice recorder app. I put it on charge, turned on the recording, and left it on the nightstand next to my bed. I wasn't expecting anything specific. I just wanted confirmation. Not for the court. For myself. The next day, the recording captured one interesting moment. While I was at the pharmacy, Julia was talking to someone on the phone in the kitchen. She's still here. Yes, she thinks she's in control. But everything has already been prepared at the notary's office. If she doesn't change her behavior, she'll be excluded from the process. I'll take care of it. As always. Her voice was cold. Clear. Without a hint of doubt. I stopped the recording. And I realized, this was no longer just domestic rivalry. She was planning something serious. And it looked like she was laying the groundwork for something more than a power of attorney. It was supposed to be a normal Wi-Fi connection. I sat down in the kitchen with my laptop to check my email. One of my clients was waiting for confirmation. But the network I had been connected to since I arrived had simply disappeared. No signal, no change notification. It was as if someone had turned it off completely. I checked the router in the hallway, everything was working. The network was active. But it had a new name and a new password. Did you change the Wi-Fi password? I asked Julia when she came into the room. Yeah. There were a lot of devices connected. I decided to reset everything. And the new password? She thought for a second, then replied, I haven't written it down yet. Remind me, and I'll send it to you later. My hands are covered in oil right now. I didn't insist. I just left. An hour later, I checked the cable. The TV displayed a message saying that the account was unavailable. When I contacted customer service, they said the login was incorrect or the password had been changed. This couldn't be a coincidence. I went back to the kitchen. Julia, did you change the cable password too? Oh, really? She looked surprised. Probably an automatic update. You can call the provider if it's urgent. It's your account. They won't tell you anything without you. Well, later then. I'm busy right now. Is this all an accident? She looked at me. Straight, calm. Do you think I'm hiding something? I'm not saying anything. I just want to have access to normal functioning. I feel more comfortable when everything is under control. She shrugged. Under one account. So there's no confusion. Again, everything was said calmly, logically. But in essence, I was being cut out. Step by step. First, consultation without you. Now, technical details. It was a strategy. Subtle, well thought out, without fuss. Not dismissal, but displacement. And I could no longer allow myself to remain silent. That evening, I called Aunt Allison. I need help, I said. But first, just come over. No warning. I want you to see everything with your own eyes. She didn't ask any questions. I'll be there tomorrow. That morning, I woke up earlier than usual. There was something in the air, either fatigue that wouldn't go away or silence that weighed heavily on the walls. Julia wasn't in the kitchen. A bottle of water and pills for my father were already on the tray. I took it from the nightstand, she said when she came in after me. You're taking care of him today, right? I nodded. I took the tray and went to my father. He was sitting in bed, pale and tired. Good morning. It's time for breakfast. He said without enthusiasm. I gave him water and handed him his pills. He swallowed and leaned back against the pillows. Half an hour later, I noticed that he was complaining of weakness. A little more than usual. His speech became slower. I went to the medicine cabinet to check if I had given him the right pills. And then I saw it, the bottle I had given him the pills from contained the wrong medicine. They looked very similar, white and pink capsules, the same shape. But the dosage was different. I was standing there with the bottle in my hands when Julia came in. Is something wrong? Did you bring these pills? Of course. They were on the nightstand. These aren't the right ones. This is his daily dose of antihypertensive medication. He can't take it in the morning. It lowers his blood pressure too quickly. Julia froze for a second. Then she played it cool. Are you sure? I just took what was closest. God, maybe I made a mistake. But I thought you'd check. You said you made them. Yeah, but it's still the person who gives them who's responsible, right? I felt myself go cold. That evening, Dad didn't talk to me. He was silent, but not because he was in pain, he was hurt. I could hear Julia talking to him in his room. In a low, quiet voice. She's trying. She's just too stressed, I guess. I'm worried about her, Dad. If something like this happens again, we can't take the risk. I know, he replied. And those words killed everything. He didn't ask me. He didn't clarify. He just accepted it. The next morning, I woke up at 8:10 a.m. and saw her in the kitchen. She was on the phone, her voice quiet but clear. Yes. I want to report a situation. It's not an emergency, just potentially threatening. The woman who lives with us is not a medical professional and has repeatedly violated the medication regimen. Yes, this could be a risk. I took a step, the floor creaked. She instantly hung up. Okay. You're too quiet in the morning, she said with a smile. And you're too prepared. They arrived at 9:30. I was helping my father with breakfast when the doorbell rang. There were two of them, a man in a shirt and a woman in dark blue with a tablet. Everything looked official, with papers and badges. Good morning. We are from the Department of Social Services. We have received an anonymous complaint about potentially inadequate care for an elderly person in this house. Can we talk? My skin broke out in goosebumps. Come in, said Julia, who appeared in the hallway a second later. I'm free right now. Martha is too. She already knew what was coming. And she looked prepared. I was questioned separately. I tried to speak clearly and confidently. I explained how we divided our responsibilities, who gave the medication and when, and what had happened with that pill. But one question threw me off balance. Do you have any medical training? No. But I follow the instructions, we have all the prescriptions. Have there been any cases of incorrect dosage? One, yes. But that was because. I stopped. Not blaming anyone would make me look guilty. Blaming someone would make me look vindictive. Because of incorrect labeling on the bottle, I finally added. I noticed it right away, and the situation was corrected. When they were talking to my father, I stayed outside the door. But I could hear bits and pieces. Yes, my daughter helps. But the other one is more responsible. She writes everything down, reminds me. I don't always remember who gave what. And then? There were misunderstandings. But I don't blame anyone. It's just hard when someone doesn't know what they're doing. I clenched my fingers into a fist. After inspecting the rooms, they had a short conversation with Julia. She opened the medicine cabinet, showed them her notes, even her meal plan. All the doses are listed, she said. I try to keep it under control. Martha gets confused sometimes, but she tries. And those words hit me hard. Martha gets confused sometimes. It was recorded in the report. As a fact. After they left, an unnatural silence fell over the house. I stood in the hallway, staring at the door, as if something could still be done. You did well, Julia said calmly. Not bad for your first time. Was that your complaint? No. But if I saw something really dangerous, I wouldn't have kept quiet. You did it on purpose. With the medication. You can't prove it. She went into the kitchen. Light footsteps, hair pulled back. Looking perfect. And I stood there. Feeling like the door hadn't just closed behind the social workers. It had closed because of what I said. Because now it's official, I'm the one who can mix up the meds. And it's in the system. We don't have time. Aunt Allison closed her laptop and looked at me. If she provokes you again, next time they'll just get rid of you. Legally. She's already made the first move. I nodded. Then I took out a box of equipment that I used to take with me on business trips. There was a miniature Wi-Fi module with a camera. I had bought it to keep an eye on my dog. Now it was to be our only means of protection. Where shall we put it? Allison asked. The kitchen. She thinks it's the least risky place. But that's where everything happens: pills, food, phone calls. We hid the camera in an empty tea box and left it on the top shelf. It wasn't visible in the light. Everything looked completely normal. The recording began that same day. We weren't expecting anything dramatic. But on the second day, in the morning when I wasn't home, the first moment was captured on video. Julia was standing by the coffee maker, talking to someone on the phone. No, she's still here. But she's on the verge. After that visit, she's like a beaten dog. If we push her a little more, she'll either leave or snap. I'm not going to rush it. Then she opens the medicine cabinet and takes out a new bottle of vitamins. She carefully removes the label and puts it back. It looks like nothing special, but the camera clearly shows that she is replacing the label on the bottle with one from another bottle. The one I was supposed to use. I rewound the tape. I watched it again. She's setting up a new trap, Allison said quietly. This isn't a small thing. This is criminal. Do you think we can do something about it? It's not enough to convict her. But it's enough to turn the tables. Especially if we show it to our father. At the right moment. I didn't answer. My heart was beating as if those frames had broken something inside me forever. This was no longer a misunderstanding or a sisterly quarrel. This was deliberate sabotage, planned in advance. I transferred the files to a flash drive. In the evening, Julia was smiling again. She told my father how hard it was for her to work and keep the house going. Allison listened silently. When Julia went out onto the balcony, Allison looked at me and whispered, "Let's make dinner. For tomorrow. The three of us. And we'll turn on the TV." It was quiet in the kitchen that evening. Julia was setting the table, neatly, as always. Her face was clean and composed. When Dad appeared in the doorway, she immediately ran to help him. Her smile was gentle. Her movements were caring. I stood by the microwave, holding the flash drive in my pocket. Aunt Allison silently sliced the bread, but I could see how tense her fingers were. "Just dinner tonight," I said calmly. "No arguments. No talk about care, property, or anything else. Agreed?" "Of course," Julia replied with a smile. "Just a family dinner." We sat down. A few minutes of discussing the news, the weather, even an old neighbor who used to keep 3 dogs in his apartment. Then there was a pause. "Dad, can I ask you to watch a video?" "It's very short," I said. "What kind of video?" "Just something you should see. Otherwise, it will only be words. And there have been too many words already." I walked over to the TV and inserted the flash drive. The screen showed an ordinary kitchen. The video was silent and slightly grainy. But it was clear. In the recording, Julia opened a first aid kit, took out a bottle of vitamins, peeled off the label, and stuck on another one. Dad sat motionless. In the second clip, she was talking on the phone. "She's still here. But she's on the verge. If you push her a little more, she'll either leave or break down." I turned it off. Silence. Dad didn't look up. Julia was the first to break the silence. It's edited. You're great with technology. There's a date on it. It's unedited. And you know that. Dad, don't listen to her. She's manipulating you. She wants to look like a victim. It's her game. He raised his hand. Quietly. But decisively. Be quiet. She fell silent. For the first time, without trying to argue. I don't know what to say, he said quietly. But I saw it. And it's not what I could have imagined. Dad, She began, but he didn't let her finish. No. No more. And then she stood up. Slowly, kindly, sadly. She gathered her napkin and plate. She stopped at the door. If you want me to go, I'll go. It's your choice, he said. But there will be no more lies here. She looked at me. Empty. Without anger. Just like someone who had won unfairly. And she went upstairs. We sat in silence for a long time. Then Dad said. I wasn't a good father. Maybe I didn't want to see. But now I see. I don't need you to punish her. I stared at my plate. I needed someone to believe me. He nodded. And said nothing more. But the silence was different now. It happened 2 days after dinner. Julia disappeared from the house, saying she was going to a friend's to take her mind off things. My dad and I were left alone. Everything was different, quieter, less tense. But also emptier. I could see that he wasn't recovering, not physically, not emotionally. Something in him was changing. In the evening, I was helping Allison with her laptop and accidentally found a letter from a notary firm in my father's mailbox. It was a notification of changes to a power of attorney document. Sent 2 weeks ago. I didn't see this, I said, holding the letter in my hands. Did you? Allison shook her head. We called the number listed on the letter. A woman at the reception desk answered politely. Yes, indeed, a power of attorney was drawn up. Ms. Julia is the authorized representative for medical decisions, current finances, and temporary disposition of property in the event of your father's deterioration. Everything is in accordance with procedure. But I'm his daughter. Why wasn't I involved? We work with those whom the client brings to us. If the person is conscious, they make their own decisions. And where did this meeting take place? At our office, last Wednesday. My heart skipped a beat. Last Wednesday, my father didn't get out of bed. He was given painkillers, and I recorded this in the care log. I sat down. I looked up at Allison. She didn't take him there. I know that for a fact. She either forged the signature or arranged a private visit. She had no other choice. Allison looked at me. We had a camera in the kitchen. But not in the car. Not in the living room. And now she has the documents. All the leverage. And suddenly everything fell into place, her confidence, the subtle hints, her strange calm behavior over the last few days. She already had the trump card. She was just waiting for the moment to reveal it. I went to my father. I sat down opposite him, gently. Dad, do you remember going to the notary? What? When? A week ago. With Julia. I didn't go. I wasn't feeling well. She said a doctor was coming. But no one came. Did she ask you to sign anything? She said it was consent for a visit from a therapist. I didn't see what it was. I closed my eyes. Inside, I felt empty. Not even angry. Just the feeling that you've fallen back into a trap you'd already managed to escape. We watched the video from that day. Julia was indeed at home. But she was gone for half an hour. And that was enough to do the irreparable. I opened my computer. And started looking for the notary's name. Someone who had worked with Julia before? A friend of hers? A former client? Now it was no longer a question of trust. It was a question of my own name on a document that someone had quietly erased. I sat across from a man in a gray suit. The notary looked dry and overly calm, the type of person who never asks why, only is this correct? Unfortunately, without Ms. Julia's permission, I cannot provide you with copies of the documents. She is the trusted person responsible for processing your father's data. But I'm his daughter. His own daughter. And he doesn't even remember signing anything. That's not my concern. The signatures are there. There were witnesses. Your presence at the time of signing was not required. He was ill. He didn't understand what he was signing. The notary shrugged. If you believe the documents were drawn up illegally, please take the matter to court. I went out into the street and shoved my hands into my pockets. The air clung to my skin. My head was empty. It was as if something had collapsed inside me. And then, a message. Julia. I see you already know everything. You could have just asked me directly. I dialed her number. She answered almost immediately. Her voice was light and even. I didn't expect you to be so predictable, she said. You knew he didn't understand what he was signing. He trusts me. And I took advantage of that. You would have done the same if you had any sense. You won't get everything. I'll find a way to stop this. That's not funny. Real power is in papers, not tears. And while you're here with your cameras and recordings, I'm making this a reality. That's illegal. But the law isn't always on the side of those who are morally right, Mart. And besides, you don't have any resources left. She hung up. I stood in the middle of the street, and something inside me changed. It was no longer a battle between good and evil. It was a game between the system and faith was starting to lose. When I got home, my dad was asleep. Allison was reading some documents. She had found an old contact list, was checking the notary, looking for loopholes. I just sat down on the floor and leaned against the wall. If she has power of attorney, I whispered, she can take him away. Without my permission. But not without his consent. And we still have that. I looked at the door to his room. And I understood, as long as he trusts me, I exist. When he doesn't, I'll become a shadow in my own home. I woke up at 3 a.m. for no apparent reason. Just a sudden jolt from inside, like an alarm that was a few days late. I went to the kitchen. I didn't turn on the light. Allison was already there. She was sitting with her laptop, the dark screen glowing in her face. Is everything okay? I whispered. I found something, she replied, without looking up. An old notary public register. The date the power of attorney was drawn up is the day your father was officially admitted to the hospital after his breakdown. I sat down opposite her. There's something else. Audio. Remember when you gave me the voice recorder for the doctor's appointment? It was in my bag, and I accidentally left it on. It was the day Julia came to your kitchen after her visit to the notary. She pressed play. Julia's voice. Come on, the signature is just a formality. The main thing is that it looks official. He doesn't remember anything anyway. You could slip him a contract selling his soul, and he'd sign it. The important thing is not to let her interfere. Silence. Second voice, indistinct, male. What if they ask? Julia. No one will ask anything. The papers are in order. The seal is there. And everything is for the good of Dad. The recording ended. Allison looked at me. Her eyes didn't show victory, but tension. Like before the final step, from which there would be no turning back. We can go to the police, she said. Or file an official complaint with the notary chamber. This is serious. She won't get away with it. I nodded. But not with relief. I had the audio recording. I had the date. I had words that couldn't be explained away as misinterpretation. And yet, I didn't feel like I had one. Because in order to win, you have to want to play by their rules. And I didn't want to anymore. I went to my dad. He was awake. "I heard you," he said without looking up. "I heard everything. We can stop this. There's a way. I'll prove that I believe you. But she's not the issue." He turned to me, his eyes tired but clear. "The question is, do you still want to be here?" I was silent. "Because I can't take another war for myself. And you don't have to live in a house that's turning into a battlefield." I looked at him. And for the first time, I didn't feel any pain. Only a bitter, deep understanding. "Will you come with me?" He nodded. I was sitting in the lawyer's office. The audio recording was clear and marked with the time. The protocol was signed. There was a medical report on my father's condition on that day and a printout from the hospitalization system. The lawyer looked through everything silently. "You have more than enough," he said finally. "You can file a complaint with the notary chamber, demand that the power of attorney be revoked, an investigation against the notary, and, if you want, a separate case under the article Fraud in the Sphere of Guardianship. How long will that take? Possibly months. But you're not alone. There are records. There are documents. And there are witnesses." I left the building feeling like something belonged to me for the first time. Not a house. Not bills. But control. The right not only to defend myself, but to act. The next day, Dad officially moved in with me and Allison. We registered his place of residence, filed for guardianship, and recorded his medical records. 3 days later, Julia received a letter from the law firm. It was a notice that a case had been opened and that her documents would be reviewed. She arrived unexpectedly. She knocked on the door. Aunt Allison opened it, calm and silent. "Are you serious?" Julia said as she entered the house. "After everything? Is this a war?" I came out of the kitchen. My hands were in my pockets. My eyes were straight ahead. "No. This is a reaction to your actions. You won't prove anything. It was legal. In the recording, you say you could slip him a contract to sell his soul, and he'd sign it. He signed it on the day he was lying in bed on N4. There were no witnesses. And I've already filed a complaint. It's been registered." Her face changed. No screams, no tears. Just coldness. "You'll waste your time. And I'll lose nothing. We'll see." She left. No threats. No drama. But with a fear that could no longer be hidden under a light sweater. In the evening, Dad said, "I don't know how this will end. But I'm calm. Because now I'm not between you two. I'm with you." I nodded. We sat in silence. Outside the window was night, without hysterics. Without illusions. I didn't defeat her. And maybe I won't be able to for a long time. But now the truth had a form, a sound, a signature. And this time it was mine. The trial was long. We filed a petition to revoke the power of attorney, initiated proceedings for document tampering and, separately, for endangering health through improper medical intervention. There was sufficient evidence. Allison found a lawyer who specialized in elder care cases. Julia did not show up for the first hearing. She came to the second one with another lawyer who did not even know what the case was about. I showed him everything. A video of her changing the labels on medicine bottles. An audio recording of her words about the soul sale agreement. Medical reports on my father's condition on the day the power of attorney was signed. And, most importantly, my father himself. He sat before the judge, tired but alert. When asked if he remembered signing the documents in Julia's favor, he replied simply, "No. And now I know what she did. I no longer trust her." These words fell on the courtroom like a sentence. The court ruled that the power of attorney was invalid, signed under conditions that violated procedure. A separate investigation was launched into the notary. And I was officially appointed the primary person responsible for Julia's care and medical decisions. In addition, a decision was made to restrict Julia's access to her father for 6 months, with the right to extend this period if any attempts to exert pressure or violate his health were recorded. When we left the courthouse, I didn't cry. I didn't laugh. I just stood there while my dad held my hand, and in his eyes, finally, was what I had been waiting for years. Trust. The next day, we returned to our new home. Julia never showed up again. We had officially gained peace. And it was a completely different feeling than a moral victory. It was, I'm staying. And you can't kick me out anymore.